This is Dianne Andrews in Black and White. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Hello, I'm Dianne Andrews, your host of Dianne Andrews in Black and White. I'm very happy to be with you here today. I want to thank my audience, I want to thank TV Land, and I want to thank YouTube.com. I've had some questions on how to get to the shows on YouTube because it's getting to be quite a few. We have, after next week, there'll be 27 shows out there on YouTube, plus some other little videos of people I've interviewed from around the world. What you do is you go to youtube.com, you put Dianne Andrews in the address bar, and then Dianne Andrews in black, white. You don't have to even put the ampersand sign. When the channel will come up, and then you click on the picture in the pink. It'll be the first picture. And click on that, and all the shows will come up in descending order from 27 to 26 to 25 and on so forth like that. And you can see all of them you want to do, addictions, bullying, spirits, miracles. But today we're doing something very special and something that it takes a special person to talk about and a special person to also concentrate in that field. As you see on the screen, it's suicide. We all know Robin Williams, the great actor, who we thought had it all. But what did he do? He killed himself. He suffered with depression. And suicide is the act of taking one's own life with the desire not to live again. I have one of the 4 top suicidologists. Yes, there is a discipline called suicidology. With me today, his name is Dr. Frank Campbell. Dr. Campbell comes to us as a PhD in social work. He's been a social worker most of his career. He went to the school of LSU, right here in Baton Rouge. He was over the Baton Rouge Crisis Intervention Center for a long time, and now he has his own consulting company. He's the senior consultant for Campbell and Associates Consulting. And next to him, I have a person that was very easy for me to get, but very difficult to get this type of person. It is the type of person who's experienced suicide being attempted by a relative, specifically by her brother. You don't know how many people I've asked that could not go through the trauma of reliving this. It was quite a while ago for Debbie, and she is willing to talk to us about it. She is a registered nurse, so she is in the field of healthcare. I thank you, Debbie Garrould, for being here. When you look at suicide, 41,000 people in America kill themselves by their own hands. I asked the question to everybody, and when Frank asked it to me, he asked me, who kills the most, suicide or homicide? What's number 1? Suicide is the number 10 cause of death in America. 41,000 people, as I said, but worldwide, 1 million people commit suicide. 2 of the factors, and these are not all of them, and Frank, of course, will know much better than me, are clinical depression and substance abuse. But when we look at it, we look at white men in the ages of 45 to 64 are the predominant person who kills themselves in America. But when I look at veterans, it's more people over 65. 22 veterans a day kill themselves, 1 every 65 minutes. Thank goodness that President Obama and our Congress has just signed some legislation to spend more money on mental illness with veterans. Of the 41,000, 3.5 to 1 are men, not women. Us women like to live. And of those who do kill themselves, only 2,300 black people kill themselves. Mostly they are white people who commit the act of suicide, and mostly white men. Give us the history of suicide, because I said commit just to get him ruffled. Let him tell you what commit suicide means.
Well, it's certainly a word that we'd like to see removed from our day-to-day vocabulary, but it's been around for thousands of years now. It has to do with the time where suicide became a criminal offense. Most of the time when you hear commit, it's going to be followed by a crime. So when people commit homicide, for example, murder is a crime in our country. But suicide is a cause of death. So a more accurate way to describe this would be people die by suicide. much the way people don't commit cancer or commit heart attacks.
So we really look at it as a clinical disease.
It
Is
is.
that?
And most of the sanctions that many people today believe are in effect have actually been removed long ago. And whether that's in religion or in law, they've all been removed.
Now, Frank, you told me that back in England, when you said commit, because they committed the family to prison, or if you killed yourself, you were held responsible, the family. Is that correct? Or
there was a
similar?
person appointed by the Crown to investigate suspicious deaths in villages and different townships. This person was known as the Crowner because they represented the king or queen in power. And the belief was that people would only take their life if they were actually being punished by their family. Therefore, the Crown had every right, after a suicide was determined, to come and take from that family all the resources and, in some cases, rape, pillage, and plunder members of the family on behalf of the Crown as a way of creating a sanction to which people wouldn't then seek to die by suicide because they know it would punish their family. So this idea of not taking your life in order to protect your family has been around a long time. And you can see where a lot of the secrecy around suicide might develop from that. The Crowner is what we in America today adopted as our coroner. So that's where the word coroner grows out of.
Oh, okay.
That history of determining cause of death.
I thought this was so interesting when you learn the history of the words and of the disease and of everything about the act of suicide. As Frank said, homicide, which means you're killed by another's hands, and suicide means you're killed by your own hands. And again, suicide is number 10 cause of death, and homicide doesn't even fit now on the top 15 causes of death, which is the first time in 45 years that it has not.
It's down to number 16
That's
now,
right, number 16.
which means we're making a successful stride in that direction.
Right.
Unfortunately, the numbers of suicide continue to climb.
Right. As you 25 to 1 attempt in America, 1 million people attempt suicide, and 41,000 actually commit the act, where 1 million people in the world, as I said earlier, actually commit suicide.
The number might even be higher because, as you were recognizing earlier, many of these suicides do not get listed as suicide.
Right.
The 41,000 plus that you're referring to means that on the death certificate they check the box suicide. We know it's underreported by as much as 15%.
But do you think, as in Marilyn Monroe, who they say committed suicide with a lot of strange John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy issues around her suicide, that some people may say suicide and they really was homicide? Somebody may have killed them?
Well, there's certainly some that go undetermined.
Yeah.
Or accidental, and of course accidents are like number 2 or 3 in the world. So they look at
Respiratory's really
suicide
getting
as
high
a
too.
preventable cause of death. It's the number 2 preventable cause of death on our planet.
What's number 1? Heart disease is number 1 cause of death in America.
Well, in America,
yeah.
but I think worldwide, accidents involving cars, car crash tends to be probably the predominant cause of preventable death.
Yes.
It's not the number 1 cause of death. That would be heart disease.
I wanted to say also that I'm very honored to have Frank here because I wanted him to speak briefly on his other acumen, the discipline of death and dying, which is thanatology. Of course, no one heard of it before. Thank you. He told me you did suicidology so great. Thank you. Said most people don't get it right because I've never heard of it before either, and I like to bring interesting people on. Tell us how many people, I know there are only 4 suicidologists, and he's, of course, the past president. He's probably going to be the president every 4 years since there's only 4 of them of the American Association of Suicidology. So, but tell us about the study of death and dying.
Well, thanatology, and you know, the reality is if we want to break Latin down, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Anything that has ology just means study of.
Right.
And then Thantos was the god of death. The Roman god of death. So thanatology grows out of that Latin phraseology. Suicidology, study of suicide.
Right.
Psychology, study of the mind.
Right.
So we know that we can break the code and learn how to say these words. But as a field of practice, death and dying, I think most people would recognize a more familiar name as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She wrote the books on death and dying, was one of the early psychiatrists to really acknowledge our discomfort around the subject of death and dying.
If I ask you a question on people committing suicide, from
You're going to say commit no matter how
I
many
can't. I can't stop it. I've been doing it all these 25 years of my life. I can't stop it.
Is it attempt?
That's a good beginning.
Yeah,
maybe
right,
for the
right.
next 25.
Yes, yes. Would you say when you go to the post-intervention after, and I know you started a grief team here in Baton Rouge, and you post-vention around the country, and you're working on that. Do you think, because a person that worked on the show, I've only been doing this 7 months, and I had a resident psychiatrist, Dr. David Greason. He was on the show December 2nd and killed himself December 22nd. I didn't say he committed suicide. Killed himself on December 22nd. And even me, I wondered, dog, maybe I should have called him right before the holidays, because we had become friends. And he was a great psychiatrist. So I'll turn to you with that on Debbie, when your brother attempted suicide 3 times, did you ever wonder what could I have done? Because it was so tied into the ex-wife leaving him was his attempt, right?
Yes.
It was a singular emotion, you thought, right, because of the ex-wife?
Yes, I think he was attempting to get his wife back and to get her attention. The first time he tried to commit suicide, he took a bottle of Xanax. And when
An entire bottle of Xanax.
entire bottle, yes. And I'm an ICU nurse, and I was working in ICU, and my friend called me, and she said that he had taken a bottle of Xanax. And so anyway, my mother ran back to the house, and he, sure enough, had taken it. They called the ambulance, and
Did he leave a note, anything?
he didn't, but he cried out to her, my friend, that he was going to kill himself. Okay, so she called my mother and said, "You need to go check on your brother, because I think he's going to try to kill himself." You know, she goes, "Oh, he won't do it." Well, she went back there, and sure enough, he had taken a whole bottle of Xanax. So they rushed him to the hospital, and then she came and got me in ICU.
How long ago was after the wife had left him? How long before he tried to kill himself?
I guess it was about 4 or 5 months that he had attempted to
Had she
get her
remarried
back.
already?
No, no, not at that time. She was still denying that she had anyone else in her life at that time. And when I arrived at the emergency room in the town,
The suicide hotline is up there for people who need some help and would like to talk to. Just wanted you to know it's on the screen.
Okay. Anyway, when I arrived at the hospital in the emergency room, I went in, and he was laying up there, and he was, going,
Come here.
Yeah,
telling you.
get this out of my nose.
Yeah. They had pumped his stomach.
Yeah, and being a nurse and everything, and I also worked there, and knew all the people.
Yeah. Tell us about the time you thought he was really serious in committing and trying to kill himself.
Take his life, yeah.
I wasn't
Take his life.
there.
That's a
I
good
wasn't there for this attempt.
Okay. But he was serious. What did he do this time?
He took Tylenol. He took a bottle
Did
of
he
Tylenol.
ever slit his wrist or try to hang himself like Robert?
Well, he said he was going. He went to her house and he attempted to commit. He said he was going to kill himself. He was going to hang himself. He didn't have a rope.
Then he was ever serious?
Yeah,
that's still scared the family, right?
Well, it was just it was so emotional. It was so emotional, and
they had been together
my
for
only
a long
sibling.
time, I think
yes,
you said, right?
Yes, they'd
been married for a long time.
Yes, they had two boys, and
she decided
he just really didn't think that
she would leave
she was going to leave him.
Right. So he was in clinical depression, you think, or chronic depression?
I think so. I really do. Looking back,
was it a shock to him? I mean, or was it something leading up to?
She had told him that she was unhappy and wanted to leave for a long time. She wanted to go back to college, and he was like, "Oh, he didn't want to do that. He just wanted to stay home and
stay home, be a housewife, be controlled." So it was an issue of a little bit of control with him, and she wanted a life.
Definitely.
What we're going to do? We're going to be taking a short break in a few seconds, Debbie, and we'll come back to these issues.
Okay.
And thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart. 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
For coming back. We've got some more interesting discussions to talk about on suicide and an actual victim. We have Dr. Frank Campbell and we have Debbie Garrould here. Debbie, tell us, how did you feel when your brother, when someone called you and said your brother tried to kill himself? What did you, was he telling you before, I'm going to kill myself? Were there any signs before?
I knew that he was depressed and very sad about his wife leaving him. And I knew that he was sort of getting desperate to where, you know, he really either wanted her back or he was going to do something to get her back. And so I guess in my heart I was kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't, you know, react faster. But I tried to talk to him. And he kept saying, oh, you know, I'm not going to do anything. And, you know, she'll come back. She's going to come back, you know.
He was living on a fantasy a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah, he was in denial at that time still, you know, big time. But they were still sleeping together, so that was hard to
I would have been in denial, too. I'm doing something on what about sex in a couple of weeks. And my God, if you're still sleeping with me, I would think she's giving him false negatives, you know.
He thought she was coming back, you know, and so.
Some mixed messages.
Yeah, very mixed.
Very mixed, and
Do you think, and I think, and you're the expert, but from what I've read, everybody who's related to a person who killed themselves think, what could I have done? Is that the first question you ask yourself?
Well,
could I have done more?
And what could I have done? Almost any time a sudden traumatic death occurs, people will have some level of survivor guilt. And the word survivor just comes from the obituary, where it says someone died and was survived by. So survivors in general is just referring to those left behind. With suicide, there's a special legacy of why. And for many people who are thinking about dying, also are thinking about living. So you get those mixed messages. You get, similar to what Debbie was saying, on one hand, he may be wanting to die, but on the other hand, he's hoping to live. And so maybe his suicide is more about trying to manipulate a relationship into coming back so that everything can be okay again. And at the same time, simultaneously, which is hard to imagine, a person is not only thinking about dying, they're thinking about living. And so when you encounter someone with this competing thought process, you could easily be talking to the living side. And the dying side will go to the rear. Or you could be talking to the dying side. So it's almost like
with someone with psychosis who has two different personalities at this time.
It can feel like that. So in an ER, you could go in and interview a person and say, we need to put them in the hospital. 10 minutes later, interview the same person and say, we need to send them home. And both interviews would have been accurate.
Like bipolar
because they've talked to both sides. Both sides of that
Yeah.
desire. And so once we understand that suicide is filled with both wanting to live and wanting to die, it kind of breaks the code.
Is that pretty much everyone is filled with both those, or
the fancy term is ambivalence, mixed feelings about living and dying.
So one little thing can push me over, that emotion. One day, if I'm having problems, let's say with an ex-wife, and we're divorced, and she's using my kids to manipulate me, I'm ambivalent. And so this day, it may just be too much for me to take. I'm already thinking about it, and I just go blow my brains up.
Well, it could be that one thing ends up being the thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is almost everyone can fill a glass right to the brim. And it'll actually bubble right over the top and still stay within the wall of the glass. You add one drop, though, and that drop, and all of a sudden a lot falls over.
Right.
Sometimes I think we only focus on the last drop rather than the reality that the glass was overflowing already.
Right.
We've got to find a way to cope with all our stress in our life so that we leave room for these unexpected life crises that can happen.
Well, do you find that a lot of people already had some kind of psychiatric ailment or bipolar or ADHD or PTSD?
Well, unfortunately, psychological autopsies, which are performed, and part of what my forensic suicidologists do, one of the problems with them is we're always looking backward, and we're looking backward without the advantage of the individual who died.
Right.
So the information we're gathering, we're filtering through what we already know, which is suicide. When we look at other people who've died from causes other than suicide and we look backward in their rearview mirror, we might see some of the very same events. So it might be more helpful, rather than to look for what causes people to die by suicide, recognize what is it that helps people not die by suicide who are dealing with lots of stress in their life. So even when we look at the breakdown of race in suicide, we know that it breaks down on racial barriers in this country.
Right.
So then why is it with black women in this country having the very lowest rate of suicide? We haven't been studying them.
Right. Black people, period, but black women for
But
sure.
black women,
Yeah.
and I don't think anyone would sit here and argue today that black women don't have stress, don't have
have
violence in
plenty.
their life, don't have. So we know that these explanatory
But we want to live for
approaches,
some reason. We don't have the desire.
or you have some protective features
Yeah.
about the way you cope with life that allow you not to consider suicide. Now, the one thing I've got to hold you and keep you honest on this, Diane. The one thing at the beginning when you made the clear distinction that men die more often, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
However, the inverse is also true. Women attempt
More,
4
yes,
times
yes,
more often
yes,
than men.
that's right, yeah.
So when you look at suicide behavior,
Is that
we
mostly
need to
white
focus.
women or non-whites too?
All-
women,
all.
even black women.
This is women, period.
So do you think
Female gender,
let me
male
tell you,
gender.
Being a woman, I know of people who have said they wanted to kill themselves, similar to your brother, who may have been less ambivalent than some. But they would say they wanted to kill themselves just to get the attention of this boyfriend or this guy who had left them. I see that, and they didn't really want to kill themselves.
Right.
They wanted to go to the
Suicide?
hospital and get their stomach pumped so he would come and have a sympathy trip. Have you
So-
seen that,
so
Debbie,
it-
being a nurse?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
many times.
Yes, I've
It's
seen that with a
being
lot of
used
women.
as a secondary gain.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
Now,
exactly.
yes,
that group of individuals that manipulate
Right.
through things like high-stakes gambling of suicide often burn out resources, burn out bridges, and they're 40 times more likely one day to die by suicide.
Now, it's strange. Her brother ended up dying by cancer, and he wanted to live after he'd gotten over the effect of his ex-wife getting remarried and living her life. Then he wanted to live.
He found reasons to live.
Right.
He was able to cope with the loss at some point.
Well, she stopped giving him these mixed messages, I'm sure, once she got married, I hope.
He still was.
Oh, okay. Oh, my God. Okay, she was something.
still sad at the end.
Yeah, wow, still giving mixed messages. Okay, still having sex with him.
No, I don't think
Not that far,
Yeah.
okay. Well, she may have loved him, too. It doesn't
She
say
did.
you don't
She-
still
yeah,
love him.
she does love him.
Just couldn't live with him, maybe,
Yep.
in the way
Right,
he wanted her
exactly.
to live with him.
Right, exactly.
Is there anything, if a person tells us, hey, I want to kill myself, don't take it for a joke, no matter what would we do?
Take it seriously
Take it serious, right.
and explore what that means. We should look at any behavior actually as an invitation to explore. Ask somebody who's normally coming to work on time, looking neat and clean. They come in dragging in, they're not doing well, they look like they're having a hard time. We shouldn't talk to each other about it. We should involve that person in our
right.
concern.
Yeah.
And that's what a supportive community does. A supportive community is somewhat nosy. And if we suspect suicide might be in their thought, we need to be able to ask clearly and directly, are you having thoughts of suicide? Because that number is the biggest number. In America, each year, more than 15 million people have thoughts of suicide. 5% of our population.
Right.
So that's a much bigger number than all the numbers we've talked about
That's
today.
right, yeah.
And the fact that people don't go on to die is often missed.
Yes.
What was it that helped a person? And that 15 million and 41,000 dying, that's a large number of people that chose to either live or they got help or they got support. So what turned a person from thinking about suicide to thinking about living?
Have you studied that, or has anyone
There's
studied
been a lot
that?
of people that have studied that, and most always what we hear is a supportive community. They learn to cope. They have people that reach out directly to them and say, I'm worried about you, and I'm not going to leave you alone.
Right, that's...
Especially if they're
Yes,
substance
yes.
abusing,
Right.
where it lowers their impulse control and they might be more quick to react without thinking. We know that people often do things under the influence they would never do sober.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So the best thing to do is get help. That's get
Get
help.
help.
Yeah.
Call the 800 number if you're worried about someone. Call the number and talk to them about the person you're concerned about. Many times local crisis lines will reach out directly to that person and intervene by phone.
Really?
The Baton Rouge
So
Crisis
they don't have to, if they
Intervention
get
Center,
something, a hint that someone is having a problem, they will call, they'll ask the person calling, what's the number, let us call them.
Yeah.
Will they go out if they,
In
they
some
see it here,
communities,
it's getting so
yeah.
deep with this person, they can tell they're about to do it. They'll go
Some
out.
communities do have mental health response by law enforcement, and many times they have communities where law enforcement are trained in how to talk to individuals who are going through either psychological distress or a mental illness. And what they've done with that, these are called crisis intervention officers, CIT, or crisis intervention team officers. They've lowered the number of arrests to almost zero in communities where there might have been hundreds of arrests prior to that, because mental health is really not a criminal act, but they can detain you and put you in on a mental health order for
Right.
assessment.
Yes.
Right.
So
In
many
hospitals,
times
yeah.
undue
PCP,
stress
we call it.
occurs.
I think it's called PCP, if
Right.
you think you're a endangerment to yourself or to the community.
Physician's
Right.
emergency commitment
Right.
or coroner's
Right.
hold
Can
can
put
be
you in.
done.
But
But that's a much more severe method of intervention than just getting a person support. Most people would do better if we just took a more community approach to our concern. When I lived here in Louisiana all my life, I look at porches on houses, how often they're filled with rocking chairs that are empty.
Right.
But there was a time when we used to sit in those rocking
Yeah.
chairs
Yes.
and talk to each
That's
other
right.
and share our
We
concerns.
don't talk anymore, and this younger generation
We
is even
text
worse.
and we do other nonverbal
Right.
communication.
I'm doing a show on sexing later today. Texting
Well, you
and
definitely
sexing.
have a lot of topics.
is
that
Right,
are
very
appropriate to
interesting.
talk
Yeah, that's going to be a
about,
fun
yeah.
one. So, like getting them involved, you know, take them golfing, teach them something, learn how, something that they like, playing checkers, playing chess, going out playing tennis, playing basketball, golfing, walking, do something
Stay
that
with that
involves
person.
them
Yeah, don't
with
leave
other
them
people.
alone.
Right.
The most dangerous place in our body is between our ears.
And their mind just
The mind is more than the
Keeps
brain. You know,
racing.
we can treat a person with medical and pharmaceutical approach, but it might take weeks for an antidepressant to have any alleviating effect.
correct.
What we're going to do, I think we brought you some very interesting information. We've given you a number out there. I hope that you can take this and use it for your own good, or for a friend or a family member who may be experiencing some of these signs. So let's take this very serious, because again, suicide is continuing to grow at a very high rate in America and around the world. Thank you very much. This is Dianne Andrews in Black and White.
Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.